On Sunday nights, we are in a study on the book of Revelation. We've done about 32 weeks, 32 tapes on the book of Revelation. And I'm trying to cover the entire book by covering this chapter and going through and covering a particular subject like I've been doing the last few weeks, or the last few times I've taught on this. And we're talking about the sevens of Revelation. Of course, you have to understand that the word seven in the Old Testament meant, it's the word Shabbat, S-H-A-B-A, and it comes from the very same word Sheba, S-H-E-B-A, S-H-E-B-A. And that word Shabbat and Sheba both come from the same root. They have the same basic meaning. One means seven, the other means to take an oath. So when you become sevened, then you're taking an oath. And when we look at I've been talking about the seven churches, seven spirits, seven angels, seven trumpets, the seven seals, the seven horns, the seven eyes, the seven thunders, the seven heads, the seven crowns, the seven last plagues, seven golden vials, seven mountains, seven kings. We've been going through all of that, and what I've been doing, I've been tying together, showing you what the seven angels are. If you go back to the first chapter of Revelation, we see what the seven angels are. You find the seven angels all the way through the book. The angels are announcing the judgment of God upon the world. Now we find that in chapter 1, we find the seven churches in verse 4. Find the seven spirits in verse 4. We see the seven churches named individually in verse 11. We see Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. Then you find the seven golden candlesticks in verse 12, and then the seven candlesticks in verse 13, seven stars in verse 16, and these stars are in the right hand of Christ, and he stands in the midst of the seven candlesticks. Of course, this is all allegorical language. It's what it is. And we see that, we see the mystery, verse 20. I keep saying that chapter 1 of Revelation is a glossary, and of course the word glossary comes from glossa. Gloss is the Greek word foreign language. Foreign language. And a glossary is a section of a book. It's a section of a book with words that are foreign to the average reader. A glossary is foreign. Words in the book that's foreign. You could look up the meaning of the words in the glossary. Now, the glossary of all the verses in chapter 1. Chapter 1 is a glossary, but the verse that explains most everything in chapter 1 is verse 20. Speaking of the seven stars that are in the right hand of Christ from verse 16. The scripture says, the mystery of the seven stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the right hand is the hand of authority, and Christ is sitting at the right hand of the Father. The Father is a spirit. It doesn't actually mean there's an old gray-headed man up there with Jesus sitting at the right hand. The right hand means authority. That's what the prince was called. He was the right hand of the king. And the seven golden candlesticks, the golden candlesticks from verse 12 and 13, and John sees Christ standing in the midst of the candlesticks. He says the seven golden candlesticks and the seven stars. He says these seven stars are the angels, are the seven angels of the seven churches, and the seven candlesticks are the seven churches. We know that the seven churches weren't literally seven candlesticks. I keep bringing this out. Where's my candlesticks? Over here. Joyce Miles gave me this. In fact, she was here this morning. Appreciate that, Joyce. And the candlesticks are a picture of the church. The oil inside is the picture of the Holy Spirit. And when you light the candlesticks, it gives out the light, and we're the light of the world. That's what it's talking about. And it's not seven candlesticks. It's one menorah, one candlestick, but it's got seven arms to the one unit. That's what it has. Well, there's one church, and this is talking about a refined church, and that word Sheba means to take an oath. It means to seven oneself. Seven oneself are to be completed. Be completed. We are completed in Christ when we go through a 7 times trial and tribulation. 7 is a figurative language for what it takes to refine us, The Lord uses this many times. He says, besides all this, in 2 Peter 1 and 5, besides all this, give all diligence, add to your faith, and he names 7 things. We got 7 times the Ark of the Covenant was sprinkled. You've got the 10th day of the 7th month was the Day of Atonement. And you've got 7s all the way through the Scripture. 4 times the Lord said, in the 26th chapter of Leviticus, 4 times he said, I'll punish you 7 times for your sin. Well, it takes 7 times punishment to bring us to completion. Now, we see these 7 angels. You see the 7 angels in Revelation 1:20. And you see the 7 angels over here in Revelation, the 8th chapter, and verse 2. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, the. Now, whenever you see the 7 angels, the is a definite article, and it eliminates any other 7 angels. It's the same 7 angels of Revelation 1 and verse 20. The same 7 angels. I saw these 7 angels in verse 2, which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. You got 7 trumpets, 7 seals, 7 vials. You've got all of this in the book of Revelation. And then you look here at verse 6 in Revelation 8. And the 7 angels which had 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. And we're going to be changed at the last trump of the 7 angels. And, of course, we see the first trumpet sounding in verse 7, the second trumpet sounding in verse 8, the third trumpet sounding in verse 10 of that chapter, the fourth trumpet sounding in verse 12 of chapter 8, then the fifth trumpet sounding in Revelation 9 and 1, and then the 6th angel sounding in Revelation 9 and verse 13, the 6th angel sounded, and the 7th angel, or the last trump, we're going to be changed at the last trump. Last is the word E-S-C-H-A-T-O-S, and it comes from the word E-C-H-O. Echo is a Greek word. It means to hold. When we say echo, we mean hold a sound. We say hello, 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 hello. Well, that's holding a sound, but it actually is just a word in the Greek that means to hold something. Well, an eschatos is the last in a series after which no other trumpet will sound. We're going to be changed at the last trump. So we're going to be changed at the 7th trumpet. And 2 things happen at the sounding of the 7th trumpet. In verse 7 of chapter 10, the mystery of God is finished. And in chapter 11, the 7th angel sounded, verse 15, and there were great voices in the heavens saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. When the 7th trumpet sounds, the mystery of God, which is the church, will be complete. That word finished is the word teleos. It means complete, and God will conquer all of his enemies. Now, we're talking about, let's look at the rest of the places we see this. Chapter 15, verse 8. Chapter 15 and verse 8. And 15 verse 1 first. 15, 1, 6, and 8. 1, verse 1. And I saw another sign from heaven, and a great marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues. That is, the 7 angels are the spirits of the 7 churches, or the 7 stars in the right hand of Christ. And that is, when you have the Spirit here, that's a picture of the oil and the candlesticks. The candlesticks have to be here. When people say the church has been taken out before this time, how can you have the oil without the candlesticks? There's no need for oil. The Holy Spirit has to be taken out when we're taken out, because the Holy Spirit lives in us. So we're still here at this point. And then you find in verse 6, and the 7 angels which came out of the temple, having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, having their breasts girded with golden girdles. And then you find in verse 8, the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no man was able to enter into the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels, or the 7 stars in the right hand of Christ. And these are the spirits of the 7 churches. And then you've got the 7 angels in 21 and 9. I'm taking you there before we got 7 angels in 17, but 17 I'm going to go back to that chapter, and we're going to look at that. Now, in 21 in verse 9, 21 verse 9, and there came unto me one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials full of the 7 last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. So you got the 7 angels all the way through the book of Revelation. Let's go back to chapter 17. I want to show you some things here. Chapter 17, verse 1. There came one of the 7 angels. That's the 7 stars in the right hand of Christ from chapter 1 and verse 10. And he says, I saw one of the 7 angels, which that's the church. The church is still here because the 7 angels are the 7 spirits, or the 7 stars. 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I'll show thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Now in this chapter, later in the chapter, God says, I'm going to show you the judgment of the great whore that sits on many waters. In this chapter, we're going to see the whore judged. In fact, we see the waters, what they are in verse 15. And he saith unto me, verse 15, The waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So this is the waters. It's waters of people. Let me get I meant to get these out. These are some of my charts. And the whore sits on many waters. That's because it's peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. And that's all of these. That's this world empire system. And of course, the beast rises up out of the waters. And the woman sits upon the beast. Well, the beast is these. Here's the beast here. The beast is, I've got the Assyrian Empire there because the Assyrian Empire was equated with the Babylonian Empire. They were more or less one. And here's the boundary line. This purple right here is the boundary line of the Assyrian Empire. Here's about where it went right here. And then you have the Babylonian Empire. That's the green right here. Went around here. Went back over here to take in part of Pakistan and Iran and Iraq. And then the Persian Empire is in the orange. That was a very large empire. All the way over here. All the way back over there. All the way back over to take in Persia. And then the Grecian Empire is in the brown. That's right here. Right there. That's the Grecian Empire. And then you had the Roman Empire. That's in the blue. Here's the Roman Empire. That goes on all the way over to Spain and right here. And this is the waters they came up out of. They're called the beast. And the Bible shows that they're rising out of many waters in the 7th chapter of Revelation. That they're coming up out of the sea. That's because they actually came up out of the boundaries of this beast world system. The Babylonians were called the lion, the Persian was called the bear, and the Grecians were called a leopard, and Rome was a composite of these three, and it was made of iron and break all the other kingdoms in pieces. Now, let's get back here to Revelation, the 17th chapter. Now, all the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Well, who is she? Who is this Babylon? We look at verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. It's the great city that reigns over the kings of the earth. Who is that? That's Babylon. Where did Babylon start? Started at Babel. And what is it that's made the world drunk with her wine? Well, the scripture says in Revelation 17 and 5, that Babylon is the mother of all harlots. And harlot is the word P-O-R-N-E-I-A, porneia. We get the word porn or pornography from that, and that doesn't merely mean to look upon naked women or naked men. It means it has the idea of idolatry. Idolatry. What mothered all idolatry is Babylon. She nurtured everything in the world that has to do with sin, and idolatry is the word E-I-D-O-L-O-L-A-T-R-E-I-A. It comes from the word ido, meaning to see, the word ido meaning to see, and the word L-A-T-R-E-U-O. That word latruo means to serve. It means to serve what you see. Well, where did that come from? It came from Babel. Babel was the beginning of the Roman system, of the Babylonian system, which became Rome and Roman Catholicism at a later date. And Babel, at Babel in Genesis 11 and 4, you find the doctrine that has made all the world drunk with the wine of her fornication, when they said, let us build us a city and a tower, and let us make us a name. Let us make us a name is the wine of her fornication itself. When a man says, let me make me a name, the word name is the word Shem, and it means authority. Shem was God's authority upon the earth when he said, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, that Japheth the eldest will dwell in the tents of Shem. Shem was second born, and that Canaan would be the servants of Shem. Shem was God's authority. When they say, let us make us a Shem, they're saying, let us make us another Jesus. And Paul said some will come preaching another Jesus, another spirit, another gospel. Now, what mothered all idolatry was Babylon. She is the mother of everything that's evil upon the earth. Now let's get back here to Revelation 17. That the wine of her fornication is self. You serve what you see. When they began the Babel system, what Nimrod did, he reinstituted the tree worship of the garden, and Eve looked at the tree and she saw all that's in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. That's the idolatry of all the world. It's just merely sin is what it is. Now let's get back to Revelation 17 and verse 3. So he carried me away in the spirit in the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Let me write that down. You don't want to forget that. She's got 7 heads. 7 heads. And 10 horns. Let me erase some of this here because I'm going to have to use the board. Okay. 7 heads and 10 horns. The heads were capital cities. A head was a capital city of an empire. Mr. Strong will tell you, when you look at the word mountain or mount in McClintock's and Strong's, you'll find that they will tell you that when the earth government was represented in the luminaries or in the stars of heaven, it was always that the governing, when it was represented by the stars in the sky, the governing party was called the heavens. The heavens. When it was from the animal kingdom, then it was called the horns. The horns, and when it was represented from the earth, it was called a mountain. And a mountain was a capital city of an empire. Now we know that the beast was Babylon. This is not any problem. Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. You find that. And the Babylon was represented by the lion. Persia was represented as a bear. Lion being the most regal of all the animals in the animal kingdom. And Babylon was called the lion. Now, that's because they were this magnificent regal empire, no greater beauty than Babylon. And then, of course, Persia was represented as the bear because the bear is the largest carnivore upon the face of the earth. The bear sweeps out across the land. If you go to Alaska, you'll find the Kodiak on Kodiak Island. They are humongous animals. They are just huge critters. And then you find the polar bear that's also in competition with the Kodiak for being the largest of the bears. Usually the Kodiak will be a lot heavier, a lot bigger, and he can stand up on his hind feet up to about 12 feet high. The polar bear can be 12, 13, 14 feet high. There is not a carnivore on the face of the earth that can stand up to a Kodiak or to a polar bear. Not even the great Siberian tiger wouldn't have a chance with them. The bear sweeps when it starts going through a prey of some kind. It rips it all to shred, and that's what the Persian Empire did. They would have 2.5 and 3 million people in their armies when they would go against certain kingdoms. And then, of course, the Greece was represented as the leopard. I've done a lot of study on these animals. The leopard is said to be the finest honed killing machine for its size that you can find in the world. It hunts alone. It hunts, and when it hunts, and that's not going to be able to whip a lion. A lion, if a lion attacks you, it may kill you, it may not kill you, it'll just maul you. The deadliest of these animals is the leopard. The bear may maul you and let you get away. If the leopard comes after you, he's coming after you to eat you, and you're not getting away from him. That's all there is to it. He can take a man the size of Bob here, a large man, and he can put him in his mouth and climb to the top of a tree with Bob in his mouth. That's a powerful animal. And that's exactly what Alexander the Great did. As depicted as a leopard, he would pop at the haunches of the bear. When he overthrew the Persian kingdom, he was like a guerrilla warfare fighter. He'd have about 30,000 in one of his armies, and he would just reach out there and pop the bear and pull away and go back and pop on this side till he broke down their resistance and broke down their morale. And that's what Alexander the Great's army was like a leopard. Then Rome came along, and Rome was a composite of all these three. Rome is compared with iron, and as iron breaks in pieces, so Rome broke all of these in pieces and destroyed them. Now let's go back to the Scripture. In verse, we said that this Babylonian system had 7 heads, and when you go over here to verse 10, or let's look at verse 9 and 10, and I'll come back on this. Verse 9 and 10, and here's the mind that hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. The woman is the false system of religion, the self-religion, the let us make up our own doctrine. The Baptists are doing that. The Charismatics are doing that. They made their own shim. They've let us make us an authority. Let us make us a name. Let us make up our own Jesus. And that's what they've done, and that's what's making the world drunk with the wine of her fornication. Then he says, this is the mind, 7 heads or 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings. He's talking about the 7 heads before this. 5 are fallen, 1 is. 5 are fallen at the time John wrote this book. 5 are fallen means 5 of the heads are fallen. So what has fallen? 1 is, and the other's not yet come. So the one that is, at the time John wrote this in 96 A.D., the one that is, we know the Roman Empire is still ruling. So the Roman Empire is still ruling. Here's the heads. The heads of the beast. Now you're going to find this beast, the lion, the leopard, and the bear. You're going to find that. The lion, the leopard, and the bear. You're going to find lion, leopard, bear. You're going to find it in Hosea, the 13th chapter. You're going to find it in Daniel, the 7th chapter, and you're going to find it in Revelation, the 13th chapter. That's the lion, the leopard, and the bear. God says of Israel, I will attack you like a lion, a bear, and a leopard. That's exactly how he attacked Israel. That was the beast attacking Israel. And the beast attacked Israel and took their power away from them. Israel had the ability to destroy anything in its path as long as they were serving Jehovah God. No one could beat Israel. Not anyone. If they had 10 people in Israel and they came against 5 million, God would perform some miracle just like he did in the 14th chapter of 1 Samuel when we see that Jonathan, the son of Saul, was willing to go attack the Philistines, just him and his armor bearer alone. He said, you and I, we will go attack all the Philistines. God said, I like that kind of faith. Jonathan believes me. I'll send him an earthquake to help him. So God sends power with someone to help them when they have that kind of faith. He said, if you're obedient to me, he said, you can be a little bitty shepherd boy and you can go against this 9'6" giant and you'll bring them down. Well, that's exactly what Israel could have done if they were not serving idol gods. They could have They could have whipped Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. We're going to get back to that in a moment. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is. So one that is the 6th king, or the 6th mountain. The 6th mountain, that was Rome. And the 5th mountain came before that, the 5th capital city. That was the capital city of Greece. Well, the capital city of Greece was at Babylon. And then the 4th capital city, that was the Persian bear, that is Persia. And they also, like Babylon, is their capital city. And the 3rd capital city was Babylon, and Babylon, the capital city of Babylon was the city of Babylon. You had a Babylonian empire, but you had the capital city in Babylon, so that's the 3rd. And you got 2 before that. I believe that they are Babel. That, after all, that is the first city where they built them a city and a tower, isn't it? I believe the first city is God planted a garden eastward in Eden. That was a city. It was a place where they lived. Eastward in Eden. I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 1 that is. 5 are fallen. We know the capital cities from Greece, Persia, Babylon. And I'm sure that Babel is in there. Some people want to put Assyria in there. But God combined the Syrian and the Babylonian Empire. Now, I believe these are the 6 cities that were up to the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was outlawed and reinstituted in the form of Roman Catholicism. And, of course, the head of Roman Catholicism is Rome. So here's the 7 heads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then there'll be 1 yet to come, and it will be the 8th, but it will be a part of the 7. And wherever you can find "Let Us Make Us a Name" thriving, I can't say this, but I do know that "Let Us Make Us a Name" is alive and well in the United States of America, and we head up the "Let Us Make Us a Name" system worldwide. There's no one that talks about self more than the United States. Very well could be Washington, D.C. The 8th could. Either that, or it could be a compilation of the American system, the United Nations, all of it coming together when America falls, and America is going to fall. It'll be Washington, D.C., or a composite of Washington, D.C. We are the most powerful nation on the earth, and we preach the doctrine of Babylon. Let us make us a name. America is an evil system. Has anybody been able to figure that out by now? I mean, when people say, well, I just don't think that you shouldn't say that about America. Well, what gets me is I'll say the preachers are lying, and they are, and people say, you have no right to call a man a liar. Well, if he'd quit lying, I wouldn't call him a liar. The lawyers lie. The doctors lie. They pad your bills. They treat you with stuff you don't need. The real estate agents lie. The insurance agents lie. All of these people in our system, they all lie. Don't we know that? Do car salesmen lie? Do used car dealers lie? And as fast as they talk, they all lie. Isn't that true? That's exactly right. They're all lying. So, and nobody wants to say it. I will say it the way it is. You can ask anybody on the street, do real estate agents lie? Well, yeah, we all know that. Does your insurance people lie? Well, yeah. Do doctors lie? Yeah. Do lawyers lie? Yeah. Well, then America's evil. Oh, don't say that. Well, you just said all of them are lying. Isn't that crazy? Now, so these are the 7 heads, I believe. There are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. The beast that was and is not, of course, we know what the beast that was and is not. You go back to Revelation. You go back to Revelation, the 13th chapter of Revelation. In verse, we see the beast rising up out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns in verse 1. So 7 heads are 7 capital cities. And the 10 horns are what we're going to talk about tonight. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave it its power, its seat, and its great authority. The word his should be translated it. It's the word ought to, and I've told you about that before. I saw one of its heads, one of its capital cities, wounded, as it were, wounded to death, and its deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Most of your old scholars will tell you that the wound, the deadly wound, came to the Roman Empire when they outlawed the Roman Empire and then reinstituted, and the deadly wound was healed when they reinstituted that in the form of Roman Catholicism. What they did is they took the niches and they took the statues inside the niches. A niche is a little round half-moon grotto where they set up these statues, and they took the statues of Peter, of Jupiter, and renamed it Peter. They took the statues of Aphrodite or Venus and renamed it Mary, and just kept them. And what they did is they healed the deadly wound. And you find this same thing spoken of over in the 8th chapter, at 8th verse of the 17th chapter. Well, let's go back over and read down to that. The woman was arrayed in verse 4 in purple and scarlet color, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. And when you go into all the old Babylonian system, they were decorated themselves with every kind of nicety of the old ancient world, and that's exactly what the Roman Catholic Church does. With gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, comma, Babylon the Great. Mystery is the word Musturion, M-U-S-T-E-R-I-O-N. Musturion, it comes from muo, meaning to shut the mouth. We get the word mute from that. So it means to shut the mouth or keep something quiet. Upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of all idolatry. Everything that mothered idolatry was, let us make us a name. Idol worship merely looks at something and says, I will have that. It has idolatry. When you kill somebody and you say, I will have his life at my hand, that's idolatry. If you rob a bank, you say, I will have that money. God says, thou shalt not. You say, I will if I want to. That is self. That's making up one's own authority. That's let us make us a name. And it's the mother of abominations of the earth. All abominations. The word abomination is the word B-D-L-E-U-G-M-A. B-D-L-E-G-U-M-A. Delegma. That word means to stink. We get the word bidet. B-E-B-D-E-A. I believe that's the way you spell it. A bidet is something you wash your bottom with, huh? We get the word bidet from that. B-D-E. Huh? That word bidet means to stink. It's what it means. And that's what the word abomination means. It means to stink. Now, I saw the woman, or Babylon, that great city that reigns over the kings of the earth. That's Babel. Babel is reigning over the kings. Can you see that? It's reigning over the kings of the earth because everyone says, let me make me a name. Let me lift myself up in my authority, and I'll take my army, and I'll go over and attack them and take over their country over there. My name is Adolf Hitler, and I'm going to take over the world. I'm Napoleon, and I'm going to destroy the world. My name is George Washington, and I'm going to take over everything and all the presidents through this system. It doesn't matter if you're in the Philippines or if you're in China. When these Mao Zedong says, I'll make myself an authority, and I'll take over all the rest of this section of Asia. That's what they're saying. It doesn't matter who they are. Our man says, I'm a real estate agent, and I will make myself a name in this town, and I'll take over the kingdom of this city here. I am such and such, and I am in the music business, and I'm going to take over and make myself an authority, a name throughout the United States. Doesn't matter what you're in, it's making yourself an authority. Whoever does that is in the Babylonian system, and there's no one more guilty than the nation in which we live. And I saw the woman drunken. We're not a Christian nation. We have a form of godliness, but we deny the power thereof. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. Who was it killed? The prophets. And who was it killed? The apostles. It was the Roman system, wasn't it? That's a part of the beast. That's the beast system. It was Greece that killed them. It was Persia that killed the believers. It was Rome that took, it was Babylon that took in Daniel and took in the 3 Hebrew children, and the Persians that took them in and had them in captivity and ruled them with their authority. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. When I saw her, I wondered with great admiration, and the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. I'm going to tell you the mystery of the 7 heads and 10 horns. Then he talks about the beast that was and is not in verse 8. That let me read it first. The beast that thou sawest was and is not. That is the Roman system that was and then was outlawed and is not and yet is, and that's reinstituted in the form of Roman Catholicism. The beast that was and is not and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. What is the bottomless pit? When this beast, that the one that's healed, ascends out of the bottomless pit, bottomless pit is a really bad word. It's not even correct at all. The word is abusos. Here's the word bottomless pit. Bottomless pit. Now, the one that is and is not and yet is will ascend out of the bottomless pit. Bottomless pit is the word A-B-U-S-S-O-S, abusos. And that word abusos, it means an abyss, but that's not really correct in this sense because the word abusos comes from bathos, meaning something with great intellectual depth, intellect, understanding. Huh? Yeah, understanding, but we can go 100 miles in that direction, but we don't need to right now. Yeah, but if I get there, we'll take off for 30 or 40 minutes. I'll be gone for 30, 40 minutes on understanding and mathetes and crossing all that. Yeah, and then abathos, when you place the alpha privative, the first letter of the Greek alphabet in front of a word, as a negative particle, it negates the word. Well, placing the alpha in front of bathos, it translates abusos. It means a place of no understanding, no intellectual depth, and that's what the Roman Catholic Church is. It is out of the bottomless pit, the place of no understanding. Now let's continue reading here. And it shall ascend out of the place of no understanding and go into perdition. They that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. They're going to wonder whose names were not written in the book of life, because they're going to see this thing that doesn't have any knowledge with such great power and might, and they're going to wonder whose names, who are actually the elect of God, because they look religious, don't they? Whose names were not written in the book of life? Were theirs not written? Was these Protestants not written? Were these people that in the early church that ran for their lives, and the apostles and the early church fathers and the Huguenots and the ones who were considered to be the true believers? I might mention this. I was reading the other day. People wanted to know what happened to the Puritans. And why don't we have Puritans anymore? Well, the Puritans changed their name to Congregationalists. And they believed in predestination, election, the sovereignty of God. And one of the most famous of the Puritans, or the Congregationalist preachers, was Enoch Pond. Enoch Pond, I've got a book on his own history. And so when the Puritans disappeared in the early 1600s, it wasn't that they disappeared from the face of the earth. They changed their name to Congregationalists. That's what it is. Now, let's continue reading here. When they behold the beast that was, Roman Empire, and is not, they outlawed it, and yet is reinstituted in the form of Roman Catholicism. And here's the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. One of the heads was wounded to death. One of the capital cities was wounded to death, and that was the Roman Empire, and the deadly one was healed in the form of Roman Catholicism. Can you see that? That's not even hard. Now, I didn't make this up. You can actually go into Matthew Henry, Matthew Poole, go into Alexander Hislop's 2 Babylons. They'll tell you this is what the beast is. This is the consensus of opinion among the great scholars of old. It doesn't have anything to do with a pope. The woman is sitting on the head. This is the world system of religion. It doesn't have anything to do with what Hal Lindsey said. It's a pope getting shot in the head. In one of his heads. It's a pope with 7 heads on his shoulders. And one of them, he gets shot. Wait a minute. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Well, it can't be literal Rome, say the 7 hills of Rome, because one of the heads is wounded unto death. You mean somebody took a pickaxe and went out there and hacked away at a mountain and started bleeding? They said, I killed that mountain. Not a dirt mountain, a capital city. Do we see that? This is an awful lot to absorb. They can't go back. Yeah. Now, the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7. So the system at the end of time, whoever's heading up the world system of self, or let us make us a name, where does everybody in the world want to go? Everybody in overseas? They want to come here. They want a part of the American dream. They want a part of democracy. They want a part of capitalism. And I preached on diabolos this morning, D-I-A-B-O-L-O-S. There's 2 words for devil in the Greek. One is diabolos. The other was the word D-A-I-M-O-N-I-O-N. Diabolos means to cast out. Cast out. When man votes, what they had in the garden was the government of Adam, by Eve, and for the devil. Well, democracy is of the people, by the people, and for the people. Democracy started in the garden when they cast God out of their lives, and so did capitalism, because capitalism means to distribute to the individual the fortunes that are made in this nation. Capitalism has the same meaning as demon or daemonion, meaning to distribute fortunes. So democracy and capitalism are evil. I told that to a lawyer here in town one day. I said, democracy and capitalism are evil. He said, certainly it is. That's what my business is about. You're a lawyer and people are suing each other right and left. It's wicked. Well, what is a good system? Well, not communism. We founded America on an evil doctrine, called it a Christian nation, founded an atheistic nation on a Christian doctrine. The word partaker or communion is the word K-O-I-N-O-N-I-A, meaning to commune with somebody, and it means to partake with them or to fellowship with them. And that word translated into the Latin is C-O-M-M-U-N-I-S. That is a Christian concept that they founded an atheistic nation on, and we took a so-called Christian nation and founded it on an evil concept. You say, Jim, what kind of government do we need? Not democracy, not communism. We need a theocracy, because theos is the word God. God, and kratia means God rules. That's what we need, and we will have that when Jesus comes back. Now, let's continue reading here. Now, the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7. At the end of time, the last world beast system will be a system of self, and let us make us a name, and everybody will be running to it. Everyone in the world wants to be a part of this nation and a part of the system of self, the American dream. Everyone wants to come here. It appears to me that democracy and capitalism is going to be here at the end of time like it was at the beginning. Doing full circle, going back You say, Jim, if you don't like it, get out. I'm going to get out. I'm either going to die or Jesus is going to take me out of here. I'm not voting for these people anymore. I don't believe in them. I'll never vote for a Republican or Democrat again. I believe they give you two candidates, and they say, pick out the good guy. Here's a Democrat, here's a Republican, and there's not a hair's difference in them, and they're in there for money and power. Do you think if they paid those guys $30,000 a year and gave them an efficiency apartment in Washington, D.C., and tell them you can't use your power and your name when you go back home, it'll be against the law to do that, to make money, we'll try you and put you in jail if you do you actually believe that they would actually serve as a senator or a president or anything else? No, they wouldn't do that. They're not there to serve the people. They're there to serve themselves. They pretend to be interested in you. I don't believe in any of them. It's like I've said before. You bring out a black mamba and you bring out a king cobra and say, which one do you want to sleep with tonight? Well, they both bite you and they both kill you. That's what the Republicans and the Democrats, where do they ever come up with this? Pick the right guy. Pick the good guy. You can't pick the good guy. You can't even partake in picking the right guy out because you have to be able to pay $500 a plate up here and go up here to the fancy country club. And in order to be in there, to pick out the local Democrat or the local Republican, you got to belong to the young Republicans, the young Democrats, and court everybody at the Sertoma, the country club, the Lions Club, and everything else. You got to be able to do that in order to pick somebody out that you want to and vote for who you want to. The average working guy can't do that. They trot two guys out in front of them and say, pick the honest guy. Well, they're both lying. Doesn't the Bible say, woe unto you when all men speak well of you? If a man can get the vote as a politician, woe unto you. Why is the word? It means a cry of damnation is against you. They call themselves Christians. I never heard one of them talking about a daily cross and death to self and self-denial and predestination and Christ's mass is paganism. Have you? No. Trust him? Yeah, like I'd trust that black mamba. Yeah, like I'd trust that. I'd trust that king cobra. Like I'd trust some Mediterranean viper. I mean, you'd crawl into bed with one of them. You're going to sleep with them guys? Don't believe in them people. Don't believe in any of them. I believe we have a nation that's evil and wicked. Now let's continue here. Let's continue. Look here in verse 12. And the 10 horns we're going to define. He got through saying, I'm going to show you in verse 7, I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. He says, I'm going to tell you about this woman, and he's going to tell us what the 7 heads and 10 horns are. The 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet. Now, evidently, they're going to receive a kingdom, aren't they? Yes. They're going to receive a kingdom. Now, I'm going to try to explain these verses to the end of the chapter to you. It's very complex. The 10 horns. So here you are in 96 A.D. I want to put some stuff on the board. Let me list it as we go through the 10 horns. Let me just list everything. The 10 horns have had a kingdom, but they don't have any right now. This is 96 A.D. In 96 A.D., the 10 horns. In 96 A.D., that's when the book of Revelation was written. Revelation written. At this time, the 10 horns have not received no kingdom yet. So evidently they're going to receive a kingdom somewhere in the future. Isn't that right? Isn't that what it's saying? It's saying they're going to receive a kingdom. But they have received no kingdom as yet. But receive power. The word power, they're going to receive. The 10 horns will receive power, or the word is exousia. From the word exousia, we get the word E-X-E-S-T-I, exesti, And exista comes from the word ex. We get the word exon from that. When you put gas in your tank, it's supposed to have power. The word exon is a Greek word. It comes from the word existi. And from this we get the word E-I-N-A-I. And that word enai means to be or to come into being. So, they will receive and come into being and have power somewhere in the future. That's what the Bible says. But receive power as kings 1 hour. The word hour is it's a simple word. It just means for a short period of time. They're going to receive power 1 hour or for a short period of time with the beast. That's the 10 horns. These have one mind. Now let me give you what a horn is. Remember I said earlier, that if the power that is upon the earth is from the luminaries, the power on the earth is called heavens. If it's from the animal kingdom, it's called horns. And it's from the world, if it's from the earth, it's called mountains. And mountains were capital cities, and they were heads, called heads. The one we're talking about is horns. Look over here in Zechariah, the 1st chapter. Zechariah, the 1st chapter. Zechariah 1. This is in 520 BC. Zechariah, there were 2 men that God called to cause Israel, to raise Israel up. Israel had been, the Babylonian system, Israel for 500 years went after Baal in the Grove. Baal in the Grove. And they went after Baal in the Grove, and then 586 BC, they were carried into captivity by Babylon. Babylon was overthrown by Persia, and Persia was overthrown by Greece, and Rome overthrew the Grecian Empire. Now, look here what it says here in verse 18 of chapter 1 of Zechariah. Now, Israel was commanded, they were in captivity for 70 years, till 538 BC. The Persians had already overthrown the Babylonians. The Persians had overthrown the Babylonians, and Cyrus had given a command to rebuild the temple, and they quit rebuilding the temple in 536 because they got so much opposition from the Transjordan region, and they quit building, and they didn't do anything till 520. And in 520, God sent 2 men, Haggai and Zechariah. To cause them to rise up and start rebuilding the temple. Again, that was the whole message of Haggai and Zechariah, was tell the people, get up off your tails and get back busy building the temple. Well, this is in 520 BC, and Zechariah is admonishing the people to start building the temple. And he tells them, and he kind of relives some of the things that they've been through in verse 18. Then lifted I up mine eyes and saw, and behold, 4 horns, or 4 powers. Horns meant powers. And I said unto the angel that talked to me, what be these? And he answered me, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Who is it scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem? The 4 powers, Babylon. Of course, Assyria was put in with that. Was always identified with Babylon. So Assyria carried northern Israel captive in 722 BC. And so here's the 4 powers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the 4 horns. 4 horns. Let's read the rest of it. And the Lord showed me 4 carpenters, and this is allegorical speech. Then said I, what come these to do? And I spake, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Babylon, Persia, Greece, then Rome, so that no man did lift up his head, but these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lift up their horn over the land of Judah, to scatter it. So you can see that horns meant power, doesn't it? So when you get to the 10 horns, they also mean power. Now let's go back over to Revelation 17. Let me get me a drink here. Mike, how much time do I have? I want to get through this. Let's get moving on in this. Let's go back to 17th chapter of Revelation. Verse 13. These is referring back to the horns, isn't it? He said, the 10 horns, which thou sawest, have received no power, but will have power with kings 1 hour with the beast, as kings 1 hour with the beast. These horns have one mind and shall give. Now the word give is the word diadomai. Shall give, D-I-A, D-I-D-O-M-A-I. D-I-A-D-I-D-O-M-A-I. That is the word shall give. Now it looks like here that somewhere in the future they're going to give their power unto the beast, doesn't it? Doesn't it look like that? Well, that's really a bad translation, because shall give, diadomai, means to give throughout a crowd or to deliver over to. Now the horns, they'll give their power. Give, shall give is the word diadomai, and it's present tense. Present tense. Present tense. Let me give you this. It's active voice, active, present active voice. Present tense means they are giving their power at this time, doesn't it? It means they're giving their power right now, active voice. So evidently, somewhere in the past, they have begun to give their power to the beast. What kind of power does the beast have? What kind of power does Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome have? Military might, the ability to beat everyone else. Is that right? That's exactly right. Where did they get their power? These have one mind and shall give their power and strength. The word strength is exousia, or their existence. They will give their being. And that is accusative voice. That's the direct object. Singular, feminine, gender. That's what it is. They're going to give their existence to the beast. Where did the beast get their power to whip Israel? To whip anybody. From the 10 horns, didn't they? Huh? Let's go back over here to... Let me show you where the beast got their power. Their power to whip somebody. Who had the power, according to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and Leviticus, the 26th chapter, who had the power to whip anybody in the world when they wanted to? Israel. Let's go back over there. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28. They are giving. That's right. They're giving right then, and they have been giving. They have been giving, and they are giving at this point. Now look over here in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. I don't know if I can explain all this week. 28. It shall come to pass, verse 1, if thou hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments. Israel, this is the law, the second law. The word Deuteronomy means second law. It's the last law that God gives to Israel before they cross the Jordan River and take over the kingdom of Canaan and drive out the Canaanites. If to do and observe and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, if you keep the statutes, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth, and all these blessings shall come on thee. You'll be blessed in the city in verse 3, in the field in verse 3, the fruit of your body in verse 3, the fruit of thy cattle in verse 4, the increase of the kine, the flocks of the sheep in verse 4. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. And verse 6, when you go out and when you come in. And then verse 7, the Lord shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee. How many enemies? It doesn't matter how big they are. God says, Israel, if you're obedient to me, you will conquer everyone, including empires. I don't care if it's 1,000,000 to 1. He brought about this when he brought Samson, gave him a jawbone of an ass. It was 1,000 to 1, and Samson killed 1,000 men. Jonathan came up out of the rocks of Michmash, and he climbed up with his armor bearer, and God said, and they killed 20 men at once there, and they went against the armies of the Philistines, and they started whipping them because God sent them an earthquake. Now, look at verse 7. The Lord shall cause thine enemies, it doesn't matter how many they are, that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way and flee before thee 7 ways. Israel has the power to whip anyone on the face of the earth. It doesn't matter about the numbers. When David numbered Israel and had 1,800,000 men in the 24th chapter of 2 Samuel, he numbered Israel in the 24th chapter. In the 23rd chapter, he listed all of his mighty men and said, it's because of my mighty men and the numbers in my army. So God killed 70,000 people in Israel because David numbered Israel and took credit by numbers for overcoming his enemies, because God is reminding him, David, when you had 400 to 600 in your army and thousands of Saul armies, I caused you to conquer him. Numbers hadn't anything to do with anything. Now let's look here in verse 15. It shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. If you don't keep my commandments and worship Jehovah God, and you go after other gods, here's the curses. Did Israel go after other gods? Yes, sirree. They went after Baal in the Grove. They gave up their power to whip the world, didn't they? That's what they did. They could whip anyone in the world, including the Babylonian Empire, including the Persian Empire, the Great Bear. It did not matter how many they had. You remember when Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, came against the young sleepy town of Jerusalem one night? And this was the great world empire there in the 18th chapter of 2 Kings. There was only one problem that the Assyrian king had. He had 2 of the most righteous people living in Israel, the prophet and the king. He had 2 of the most righteous men who ever lived in the Bible, Isaiah and Hezekiah. And he coming up against these 2 people and say, I'm going to whip you. And the Rabshakeh of the messenger, the Rabshakeh of Sennacherib, came to the wall of the city and said, the great king demands your surrender. And Hezekiah goes to Isaiah, says, Isaiah, there's hundreds of thousands of people out here, and they're going to whip us, and we don't have enough people to fight with. We've just got very few people. And Isaiah went and prayed this prayer. I think it was something like 64 words. He said, God, let these people know who you are. And he told Hezekiah, you can go home and go to bed tonight. And that night, God sent the death angel into the camp of Sennacherib and killed 185,000 Assyrian soldiers, men that weren't believers and didn't have a chance to believe. People say God won't kill somebody. He killed 185,000 in one night. It matters not how big the army is that attacks God's people. The Lord our God will fight for us. He will plead our cause. So you see, when Israel was worshiping God, they could whip anybody. And when they go after other gods, anybody can whip them. And who is it God sends to whip them? How does Israel give up their power? By worshiping idol gods. Look here in the 28th chapter. In verse 23, and thy heaven that is above over thy head shall be brass. There'll be no rain. And the earth that is under thee shall be iron. It'll dry up and it'll be as hard as iron. You'll grow no crops. Famine will come. And the Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven it shall come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. Look at verse 25. If you're not obedient to me and you go after other gods, you'll give up your power, Israel. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. What is the enemy that came against Israel in 586 BC? The beast. What did Israel do? They gave their existence, their living. They were carried away as though they were dead, and they gave up their spiritual life to the beast. Didn't they? They gave it to Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome because they had, let me put it this way, Israel had the power of the world. It was the living God, wasn't it? And the only reason the beast could rise up was to whip Israel. Israel transferred their power to Babylon when they went after Baal and the grove. There were 12 tribes in Israel, 12 tribes. Each one of those tribes was called a horn. How many horns did it take how many powers did it take to transfer Israel's power over to Babylon? It was the 10 northern tribes. 10 northern tribes. It was northern Israel when Jezebel, her father was Ethbaal, and he was a priest of Baal and the Ashtaroth. He was a priest of Baal. Baal was a generic name for Hercules. The Tyrian Hercules they generically named it Baal. And the grove, the Tyrian Venus, they brought into Israel and called the grove, that is Venus. Israel started worshiping Hercules and Venus. What is God going to do? He's going to raise up a system and turn the power that Israel has to whip these people over to them and give them the power to destroy all the earth. And you notice what he says, the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Did not Babylon come against them? Did not Assyria come against them and destroy them? But they wouldn't have a chance against them. It was the 10 northern tribes when Jezebel marries Ahab, and they set up Baal and grove worship as the national god and goddess of Israel. They built temples for them in that 16th chapter of 1 Kings. They built for the groves and all of the Levites. The Levites left northern Israel and went south, and there were no priests of God, no temple of God in northern Israel. It was the 10 northern tribes, or the 10 horns of Israel, that brought this Baal and grove worship into Israel, and they gave their power over to the beast, didn't they? Do you see that? And let's look at the 26th chapter of Leviticus. Look at the 26th chapter of Leviticus. This is a sister chapter to the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy. Come against you one way and flee 7 ways. And he says, your enemies, there in that, I don't know if I finished that verse in the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy. He says, let me finish reading it. 28th chapter of Deuteronomy. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. What was it removed Israel? It was the beast, wasn't it? They gave up their power to conquer everything in the world to the beast when they began to serve Baal in the grove and the golden calf, didn't they? God says, you don't keep my statutes, you'll give up your power. You will go against them one way and they'll flee 7 ways when you're obedient to my word. And when you're not, I'll have them carry you into captivity. That was Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Or the beast, the lion, the bear, and the leopard in Rome that carried them into captivity. They gave their existence, their power to the beast, didn't they? Because they had I keep repeating this, they had more power than any world system that ever existed or that ever would exist. All they had to do was worship God, and they could whip anyone. Now that's the truth. And look at the 20 of Leviticus. Let's go to the 26th chapter. This is a sister chapter to that. 26th chapter. How much time do I have, Mike? I'm trying to get through this. 26th chapter. I'm skipping like a stone over the top of the lake. I'm not really going into as much depth of everything as I could. Look at verse 1. You shall make you no idols, nor graven image, neither rear ye up a standing image, neither shall ye set up any image of stone in your land to bow down unto it, for I am the Lord your God. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, that's what Deuteronomy 28 says, doesn't it? If you keep my commandments, then will I give you rain in due season, and the land shall yield her increase. And what are the 4 judgments of God? Sword, famine, pestilence, and beast. Those are the 4 sword judgments all the way through the Old Testament. God, I said, I'll send the sword against you where they'll conquer you. Then I'll send famine. Then I'll send the pestilence. And when you're not obedient, I'll send the beast in to carry you away into captivity. And that's what they did, didn't they? You'll flee against your enemies 7 ways. Now look here. If you walk in my commandments and keep my statutes and do them, if Israel does this, then I will give you rain in due season. The land shall yield her increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. And your threshing shall reach unto the vintage, and the vintage shall reach unto the sowing time, and ye shall eat your bread to the full, and dwell in your land safely. And I will give peace in the land, and ye shall lie down. And none shall make you afraid. I will rid evil beasts out of the land, neither evil beasts, just talking about Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. The word evil is ra. That's the same word I create evil. Lions are not evil. They're just trying to eat. They're hungry when they eat a man or eat another wild animal. That's not evil. That is their nature. I will rid evil beasts out of the land. Neither shall the sword go through your land. I will cause Babylon to be conquered. I will cause Persia and Greece and Rome to be conquered. You will have the power over them. But if you cease to serve me, I will take the power from you and give it to them. And the 10 horns of northern Israel gave up their power when they brought this system. And it was northern Israel, the 10 tribes, that polluted southern Judah. And they polluted southern Judah more in the fact when Jezebel married Ahab, and Ahab was running around with Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat was righteous. He was the king of southern Judah. Ahab was the king of northern Israel. And Jehoshaphat had a son named Jehoram. And Ahab and Jezebel had a daughter named Athaliah. And when Athaliah marries the son of Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, she begins bringing her idols and gods into southern Judah. So it is the 10 northern tribes of the 10 horns of Israel that bring the Baal and the grove worship into Israel, and they give over their power to the beast. And ye shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword, verse 7. And 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight. God meant exactly that. 100 of you can whip 10,000 in an army. Doesn't God have that repeatedly happen in the Old Testament? Over and over again, when they would be so totally outnumbered, God would cause them to win when they were obedient to Him. When they had an obedient king. And 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight, and your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. It doesn't matter how big they are. Look at verse 14. But if you will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, and you shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that you will not do all my commandments, that you break my covenant, I also will do this unto you. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, the burning ague, that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart. And you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. And I will set my face against you, and ye shall be slain before your enemies. You have the power, the existence. You're alive with God. You are being with God. You are alive. But you're going to give your exousia, your existence, your life, your resurrection over to the beast, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, when you go after other gods. Did they do that? Yes, they went after Hercules and Venus, Baal in the grove, Molech, Shemash. They were all generic names for the female tree deities. And this is the same system called Christ's Mass that we've got in America. Do you think God's going to let us get by with this stuff? We're going after, you know what we're going after? The God of self. They that hate you shall reign over you, and ye shall flee when none pursueth you. And he says 4 times, verse 18, verse 21, verse 24, and verse 28, I will chastise you 7 times for your sin. I will punish you 7 times more for your sins. I will bring 7 times more plagues upon you according to your sins. I will walk contrary unto you and will punish you 7 times for your sin. And each time he mentions the 4 times, he mentions sword, famine, pestilence, beast. Now, let's go back over here to the 17th chapter of Revelation. They're already giving their power to the beast because they went after other gods. The Bible says the 10 powers, or the 10 horns. Babylon has the power of the 10 northern tribes. The 10 northern tribes of Israel could have whipped anybody as long as they were obedient. Any given tribe could whip anyone as long as they were obedient. But northern Israel became blasphemous first, and then it bled down to southern Judah. It was the 10 northern tribes that gave up their sovereignty to the beast system. Now let's get back to 17th chapter of Revelation. Now, Revelation 17. Can you see this? Does it make sense to you? Because they're already giving at this time, present tense, they are giving their power unto the beast. Look at verse 13. These have one mind and are giving. You could put that. Are giving, present tense, active voice. It's something they're doing. Their power and strength, their exousia, their existence, they're considered alive and existing with God when they're obedient to His Word. They're considered dead when they're in captivity. Now notice this in verse 14. These 7 horns shall make war with the Lamb. These 10 horns, not 7 horns. These 10 horns shall make war with the Lamb. How is Israel making war with God? By going after other gods, aren't they? But I want you to notice something about the 10 horns. They are not destroyed by Jesus, are they? No, they're not destroyed. Look at this. He didn't destroy them. He preserves them in captivity. And the Lamb shall overcome them. Remember the word overcome? Nikaao. Nikaao. And the word Nikaao comes from the word Nike. It is the word Nike. Nike, you run in Nike shoes and they give you the victory. This word Nike means victory. Victory. And overcome is the verb form of victory. What is the victory that overcomes the world? Even our faith. Now, Israel is spiritual and it's going to receive a kingdom, isn't it? Yeah, he's overcoming them. Yeah. Yeah, he's overcoming them. That's right. He does not destroy them. In fact, I need to look up I need to parse that word overcome. I didn't stop and think to do that. Yeah, he's overcoming them right now. I'm sure it's probably present tense or it's aorist tense, past tense. And past tense means it has been happening and can still be happening. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him, who are with him? The 10 horns, or Israel, is going to be with him because he overcomes them, but he does not destroy them. If they are actually a part of the beast, he would destroy them, wouldn't he? They're not a part of the beast. They've just given their power to the beast, haven't they? They that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. I believe the 10 horns, I believe this is referring to the 10 horns, or Israel that is now spiritual. Circumcision is not outwardly but of the heart. And a Jew is of the heart. Are you looking up the tense of that? Overcome? Okay. Aorist tense. I knew it had to be aorist or present tense. So overcome, Jesus shall overcome them. It's an infinitive. Okay, overcome is aorist tense. Aorist tense, and he's still overcoming them because they're giving their power at this time. Aorist is past tense. This is not something in the future. It's something he has already overcome them and is still continuing to overcome the 10 horns, isn't he? It's active voice. Yeah. It's something that he is doing to them. He's doing it. Now, let's continue here. Notice he does not destroy the 10 horns, right? Let's continue. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. That's the seas where the beast rises out of. That's all these seas here. That's this sea that the beast comes out of, the Mediterranean Sea. The beast is all over this. And the beast, the harlot, is an international city. It was a literal city in the ancient world. Now it's an international city. Now look here in verse 16. The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast. This is figurative language. You have to understand that. This was the 10 powers that Israel had that relinquished their power to conquer the beast. They gave their existence and their powers to the beast so the beast could conquer them. Isn't that what Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26 says? Yes. As long as they're obedient, they can conquer. When they're disobedient, then the power to conquer is given to someone else to conquer them, and they'll be scattered throughout the earth. That's not really even hard, is it? That's right, spiritual Israel. And the 10 horns is spiritual Israel, coupled with the 2. Now look here in verse 16. The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, they shall hate the whore. Now notice their position. The 10 horns gave their power to the beast, and the harlot rides upon the heads of the beast. And Jesus overcomes them with faith, the victory that overcomes the world. And then they turn on the harlot. The church, as it comes out of Babylon, is going to turn on Babylon. We're going to turn on the let us make us a name system, aren't we? That's what we're going to do. They shall hate the whore, not be destroyed by Jesus. The 10 horns are going to be conquered. That's God's Israel, those that walk according to this rule, a new creation. These shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate, and shall eat her flesh. This is what the 10 horns are going to do. And they're not going to be destroyed by Jesus. If they were a part of the beast, or if they were part of the harlot system, why would they be attacking the harlot that sits upon the beast? That's the church attacking the false system of religion is what it is. Can you see that? Huh? Yeah. Yeah, they were upon the powers were upon the beast. The powers was the power that Israel had to conquer the beast, and they gave their power over to them. Horns are powers, remember that. And shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Now look at this next verse. For God hath put in their hearts. Now the word put is edoken, E-D-O-K-E-N. E-D-O-K-E-N. That is the word put. Let me erase some of this. I need to be able. God hath put. This is something He's already done. Look out, I'm throwing erasers. Okay. And what is Israel? Is that not God's kingdom? Huh? Isn't that God's kingdom? Okay, look here. I've never heard anybody teach this before, but all it takes is some simple reasoning. Where did the beast get their power to whip anyone? What is the whole purpose of the beast? To chastise Israel. That's all. When there's no need for the beast anymore, when the church is complete and living in perfection, we're not talking about the Baptist church or the Church of Christ, the Pentecostals. We're talking about God's called out. When the church lives righteously, God's people, there'll be no need for the beast. He'll come back and destroy the beast. That's it. The beast has one purpose. The beast is a razor strap that God hangs on the wall and pulls down and whips Israel with it. That's all. Now, all right, God hath put in their hearts. Put is edoken, E-D-O-K-E-N. Now that word edoken is aorist tense active voice. Aorist tense. That is past tense. God has already put it in the past in their heart. He has already put in their hearts, in the heart of the 10 horns, He's put in their heart to fulfill His will. That's predestination. That's exactly right. Now, the word fulfilled is actually 3 words. It means to do. Let me get my 3 words here. To fulfill. It means to do the mind. It means to do the mind. To do the mind. His will. Do is aorist tense. Aorist tense. It is an infinitive. The mind. All of this would have to do with in the past. It's something in the past. God has put it in their minds, in the minds of the 10 horns, to fulfill His will. Who is going to fulfill the will of God? The church. That's right. This is allegorical language. If you miss this, you're going to miss the whole thing. He's put it in their minds to agree to give their kingdom. The word give, dunai, D-O-U-N-A-I, give, D-O-U-N-A-I, that is the word give. This is not a future tense happening. That word give is dunai, and it is aorist tense, past tense. It's already in the past. God has put it in to give their kingdom. So the 10 horns have a kingdom, don't they? And if this is Israel, and it is, the kingdom is Israel, isn't it? They gave themselves over to the beast when they began to go after other gods, and they gave their kingdom into the hands of the beast, where the beast was able to carry them to captivity. I don't care if they'd have had 10 million soldiers and Israel had 1,000. There's no way they could have whipped Israel if Israel had been obedient to God. No one could beat them. Isn't that true? To give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God should be fulfilled. Notice the 10 horns. The 10 horns have a kingdom, don't they? 10 horns. Now notice this. 10 horns have a kingdom. Let me write this down before I forget. 10 horns have a kingdom. Kingdom. And this kingdom, we've already said, is Israel, because they gave up their power to the beast. And this kingdom is Israel. And this kingdom destroys Israel. I mean, destroys. This kingdom, Israel, destroys the beast. Doesn't it? Or the Babylonian system. Now, in the New Testament, you have the very image, or the real, very image, the real, and in the Old Testament, you have the shadow. The shadow is the literal. Babylon was destroyed in the Old Testament. Babylon is fallen once, is fallen twice. It was a literal system over here, and it's a spiritual system over here, a world system where the church, which is Israel, will receive a kingdom in the future. The church is the 10 horns that have a kingdom. This kingdom is Israel, and Israel destroys the beast or Babylonian system. Let's see if this is true in the Old Testament. Go back to the 2nd chapter of Daniel. Am I out of time? Oh, man, I ain't going to get through this. Daniel, let's just go back to Daniel. Daniel, the 2nd chapter. It'll be on the tape. For those of you that hear this, I'll go ahead and finish this tonight. And if you want the tape, we've got a 2-hour videotape. So all of y'all that hear this, you can get it on video. All you got to do is call us. Now, look at Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Daniel 2. I'm flipping around here, ain't paying attention to what I'm doing. Sometimes I do that. I'm thinking and I just go, I'm thinking. Okay, now, Nebuchadnezzar has a vision. Verse 31. Daniel is interpreting the vision for Nebuchadnezzar. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. Now, this image is the same system of the Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Rome is an iron kingdom, and this image starts with gold at the top, gold at the top, then it goes to silver, and then it goes to brass, and then it goes to iron. If you'll notice, the metals become less precious as it goes downward, but more powerful. Silver is stronger than gold. Brass is stronger than silver. And iron is stronger than brass. And they didn't have alloys back in that time, so they didn't have any steel, no steel. So iron was considered the thing that broke everything else in pieces. The gold is a picture of the Babylonian lion, Babylon lion. The silver is the Persian bear. That was a stronger army than Babylon, but it was less precious. It didn't have the regalness of Babylon. The brass was Greece. It was more powerful than the Persian in a certain way, but it was stronger than Persia. Brass is stronger than silver. And the iron was Rome. Rome, the Persian bear, the Grecian leopard, and Rome, which is the iron system. If you'll notice that the scorpions there in the ninth chapter of Revelation, I'll come back to it, had breastplates of iron, and that was the false teachers, and that comes out of Roman Catholicism. Now let's continue reading here. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, and the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain. There's a mountain that's going to destroy the Babylonian system. Mountain's the capital city. I wonder what that is. Jerusalem? Heavenly Jerusalem, the church of the firstborn, Hebrews 12:22. God's Israel, where the 10 horns have allowed it to thrive, has allowed Babylon to whip them. The church will come to a place where they will not allow this. This is the dream, Daniel says. We will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king Nebuchadnezzar, Babylonian king, art the King of kings. For the Lord of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven, hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over all of them all. Nebuchadnezzar, thou art the head of gold. There's the lion. And after thee shall rise another kingdom inferior to thee in quality, because silver is less in quality than gold, but it's stronger than gold. And another third kingdom of brass, that's the Grecian leopard, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, that's the Roman Empire. And you find that in Daniel 7, when you see the fourth kingdom rise up, and he has the little horn in the 7th chapter. And in verse 7, after this I saw in the night visions, 7 and 7 of Daniel, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great teeth, great iron teeth. That's Rome. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. 7 and 7. It had the power of Israel, didn't it? That's what it had. Now let's go back to verse 40 of Daniel 2. The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, that's Rome. Forasmuch as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things. Rome subdued all of the ancient world. And as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. Whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron. I'll tell you what the clay is in a minute. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of iron, forasmuch, and of course, Rome overthrew Israel. That was the beast that was and is not. And when it came back into being in the form of the Roman Empire, it was divided into two sections, the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church. They were both Catholic churches. So it's divided in two. Forasmuch as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Now you have to understand, when they wanted to refine something, the miry clay is the type of Israel. When they wanted to refine clay, to put it on a potter's wheel, they would put it in a refining clay box, and they would trample the clay underfoot until it was refined and all of the defects were out of the clay. They would trample the clay. The iron is not mixed with clay. The clay is all over the feet of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire is trampling Israel down. Well, let me give you that. Over here in Micah 7, look at Micah 7, verse 10. Micah 7:10. Micah 7, verse 10. Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum. Okay. Micah 7, verse 10. Then she that is mine enemy shall see it, and shame shall cover her which said unto me, Where is the Lord thy God? Mine eyes shall behold her. Now shall she be trodden down as the mire of the streets. That's Israel's going to be trodden down. Trodden because she's being refined to raise her back up. Part of clay and part of iron. The iron feet have clay all over them because they are the refiners. That is the Roman Empire. They're going to refine Israel. It is Roman Catholicism that's going to refine the church. Can we see that? And look at Zechariah 9 in verse 3 and 10 and 5. Zechariah 9 and 3, next to the last book of the Old Testament. Zechariah 9 and 3. 9 and 3 and 10 and 5. 9:3. And Tyre builded herself a stronghold and heaped up silver as the dust and fine gold as mire of the streets. Behold, the Lord will cast her out and will smite her power in the sea, and she shall be devoured with fire as mire in the streets. And the mire is trodden down. And look at Zechariah 10 in verse 5. They shall be mighty men which tread down their enemies in the mire of the streets in the battle, and they shall fight because the Lord is with them, and the riders on horses shall be confounded. I'm just simply showing you the mire is trodden down, and that clay that's mixed with iron is miry clay. And look over in Isaiah 41 and 25. Isaiah 41. 41:25. I have raised up one from the north. That's Babylon coming in from the north. Always they attack from the north. They couldn't attack from the east because it was all desert. And he shall come from the rising of the sun. From the rising of the sun is in the east. That's the Babylonian system. And he call upon my name. He shall come upon princes as upon mortar, and as the potter treadeth clay. Now that says it right there, doesn't it? As the potter treads the clay, back to Daniel, the 2nd chapter. So the clay mixed with iron, the beast is here to tread Israel underfoot. Israel is the church. They've given their power to the beast, haven't they? Isn't that right? Y'all see that? And let's read the rest of this. We said a while ago that 10 horns have a kingdom. This kingdom is Israel, and they gave their power to the beast. This kingdom destroys Babylon, or the beast. The kingdom destroys the beast in Revelation 17, doesn't it? Let's see if the kingdom destroys the beast system here in the 2nd chapter of Daniel. Let's read it. Verse 43, Whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Israel has mingled themselves, haven't they? We've talked about that so many times. When Ezra came back from the captivity in 457 BC, he found Israel had mixed themselves with the Hittites, the Perizzites, and they were worshiping their gods. And that's how they gave up their power. Their power to whip everyone. And the beast received it. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Now look at 44 and 45, and this will show you that in the Old Testament, this is about Babylon falling in Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome falling. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome are these kings, shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom. What kingdom is he going to set up? The church, Israel, true Israel. Let's see if this kingdom destroys Babylon like at the end of time the 10 horns are going to destroy Babylon in the 17th chapter of Revelation. Look here. Which shall never be destroyed. That's his church, isn't it? And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms. Israel is going to destroy Babylon in the Old Testament, isn't it? That's what we said in the New Testament, the 17th chapter of Revelation. The 10 horns gave up their power to Babylon, but God's going to conquer them. He's going to overthrow them and give them faith, and they're going to turn on the system, on the world beast system, and on the Babylonian harlot to destroy them. How do we destroy the Babylonian harlot? By repenting. And then God intervenes, and he'll come back in heavens with great power and great glory, and he'll destroy the Babylonian system. It'll be because there'll be no reason for us to bow anymore to Babylon when he converts his people. And look here, all these kingdoms, it shall stand forever. God's kingdom will destroy Babylon. Look at verse 45. Forasmuch as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain was without hands, that it break in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver. That's Babylon, Persia, Greece, isn't it? And the gold that the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. Jesus is the stone hewed out of the mountains without hands, and he destroys Babylon because the kingdom turns on Babylon when they convert. When the church bows to the will of God and they cease to worship the idol of self, or let us make us a name, that's when there'll be no more reason for Babylon to stand. Christ will come back. And remember Cyrus that overthrew Babylon? He was called the anointed of the Lord. He was called the anointed of God. He was the antitype of Jesus who will come back in flaming fire, taking vengeance on all those that obey not the gospel. And he'll call his people out to him. And the way we overthrow Babylon is we come out of Babylon. When Cyrus called Israel out of Babylon, Babylon collapsed and had no reason to stand. I hope I haven't gotten too... This is a hard, lengthy message, but the only reason Babylon had power was because Israel worshiped Baal in the Grove, or the system that we call Christ Mass in America. And because they went after, let us make us a name. Can y'all see this? I don't have any doubt that the 10 horns are Israel. It's the 10 northern tribes that brought the grove, or Venus, and Baal, or Hercules. And they gave up their sovereignty. They gave up their power to beat the world. And then God transferred the power over to Babylon and allowed them to come against Israel one way, and they fled 7 ways. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for your word and truth. God, help us to continue this message. Give me strength and health and courage. Lord, there's so much to be understood in your word. God, deal with our hearts. Crush us under your hand and give me strength, God. Sometimes I don't have the strength that I feel